we are starting the May 21st, 2025 WCAC meeting. I just want to go through and confirm that everyone is present. Let's see, I'm going to just go through on my screen here. John Cooley.
Yep.
Anna Feldwig.
Present.
Allison Ely.
Here.
Greg Dorothy.
Present.
Nicole Hammond. Lindsay.
Present.
And Barbara.
Here.
Awesome. Okay. And I, Susan, am present. I think we're missing Linda Ferrari, but she didn't tell me she wasn't coming, so maybe she'll pop in a couple of minutes. Awesome. Okay. So let's see. I need to share the agenda, and I will do that. Oh, oops. I'm going to have to share to the screen here. I should say we are also joined by Elizabeth Hughes, our town planner. Okay, let's see. Here is our agenda. So we're gonna do a welcome. Don't have any minutes to approve, but that will be changing soon because I feel like I'm sitting on some and have gotten reminded about others by Heather. So I will get those over to you guys for approval very soon. Hopefully that's okay.
This is your last meeting though, right?
It is, but I am still gonna like get these minutes all to you guys. So that's the other thing I wanted to say is this is my last meeting as chair, but I will still be totally available to help transition to whoever is going to take up the chairpersonship. And I just want to mention that we are able to have like co-chairs as well in case anyone is interested in sharing the chair responsibility. I feel like it is a huge learning experience and also really fun and very gratifying. So I just want to give that a good plug. We can talk. We can
describe the fun parts.
So yes, let's see the fun parts. The fun parts are
You get to work with Heather and me.
exactly, yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that is the funnest part.
You do that
yeah.
in a different committee?
Come on in. Linda's here too now. Yes, and then other fun parts are like planning the guests that we're going to have at our meeting and thinking about how all the different pieces of info we pick up around town apply to our work here, and also observing how amazingly West Concord has continued to become better and better and thrive under our stewardship and for other reasons as well. So those are the fun pieces. Okay. So let's see, other housekeeping items. I wanted to mention that Lindsay is poised to become an associate member, I believe, because we have, let's see, it's like 7 full memberships and 1 associate membership. Allison has become a full member as of the last select board meeting. You become an associate member and you all will just continue like, but when a full membership opens up, you will move into it. And actually it could be my full membership that you take. So you might only be an associate member for like literally a couple of days. Cool. Okay. Let's see.
Is it also John's last meeting?
Well, not necessarily. John has more room to run on his 6 years. So as long as he's willing to stay on, I think he would be welcome to continue serving out his 2nd term. You don't have to decide now.
Seems like it never ends.
I know, really, it doesn't. We love consistency. It's good to have people who kind of like know the history of stuff and can like help. Things move slowly, and so it's good to have people who remember when something started and can see it through to the end.
Right. Susan, you've done a great job, by the way, so thank you so much.
Oh, well, I inherited the chairpersonship from you, so I feel like you helped me kind of like get my bearings and get off to a strong start. So appreciate it. Let's see. So other housekeeping items. So I owe minutes for approval. I'm happy to help with a transition. Whoever feels like taking over, wants to take over either as chair or co-chair. We can talk about that later on in the agenda. I do believe there's a West Concord walk around coming up on the 30th of May. And that is, I think, being led by the Economic Vitality Committee, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be focusing on, I think, where there can be better seating available for folks who need to rest as they're walking around town, but we can certainly observe other things. And like, I plan to join that as well, because I think it's really cool to get out there with other folks and observe what needs to improve and what's going well. And then I do believe also on the 28th of May is another MCI, kind of.
Something came in the mail today.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, another MCI gathering, which I think is going to be the consultants kind of synthesizing all the different advice that they got and sharing with us some scenarios.
Did they give it to
There's
you?
2,
Oh, okay. I
and it's
didn't
like
see
Gero
that.
Park.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So like outdoors.
Did we
with the
send
road.
our position statement to them?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yep, we did.
That's
Yeah.
that's in the mix.
Yes, definitely in the mix. They have a copy of the Greenway presentation as well. And they also have our rundown of, you know, what has been accomplished from, the initial work on West Concord and what is still remaining to be accomplished.
And
So
the
we provided
Greenway
a-
slides are on the town site now. Whoever did that, thank you.
Awesome. I think I may have sent them to Heather over in Elizabeth's office. So, yeah. Okay, so those are the things I know about that are coming up. Well, also town meeting, which I'm not sure of the exact date, but it's happening during that
June
first week
2nd.
of June. Okay, so June 2nd. It'd be good to keep an eye on the different articles that are coming up to be voted on. I did want to talk about 2 of those today during our meeting and have a bit of a discussion and also potentially like vote as a group in terms of if we want to take a you know, a stance on those articles. So we can talk about those. It's Article 37 and 44. Then John is going to talk to us about a pocket park idea. And after that, we can get back to the leadership transition and do public comment. So let's see. All right, so related to warrant articles, what I'd like to do is actually go over to the town website. If I can get over to it.
Was I obviously was mistaken. I thought this was like a joint planning board meeting. No.
No, it's just we decided to have it in person because we hadn't
Okay.
had one in person in a while. But we
Sorry
should
about that.
plan one of those soon also. So,
I'm gonna see if I can find a pen that has ink in it.
okay,
I might have another one. Searching around in my 1,000 pocket purse.
we actually should designate someone to take minutes, which I know has been a challenge for our committee in terms of the minutes, but is there anyone who is excited about taking minutes
I'm
tonight?
sure that's the right word.
Greg,
I'm happy to.
I'll do it. I'm happy to do it.
And I'll send them, oh,
Okay.
Anna, you.
Anna's gonna do it. Yay. Thank you
Anna's
so
gonna do it.
much. Thank
Oh,
you, thank
thanks.
you. Okay. All right. So this is Article 37, which is kind of a lot. We can look at this article explanation and then talk about how it pertains to the things we have spoken about here on our committee. So both of the articles we're going to speak about tonight are parking related. So this one is about actually parking sharing. And I think we've all observed together that sometimes it is a little bit onerous for new businesses that are coming into town to try and come up with this amount of parking that's assigned for the use of their space. And previously, what was allowed is for these 2 groups that were perceived to have not overlapping parking needs, them be able to share parking spots with each other. So it's like banks could share with, let's see, you know, an educational institution or a religious organization could share with a retail store. So you can see here in this sentence, they can decrease their parking requirements by up to 50%, but only for like these, I guess it's 5 things: educational, religious, lodge, club, indoor amusement, restaurant. Then they have to find a pairing with like a bank, an office, a retail store, repair shop, service establishment, or something else that's not open, usually during their hours, in order to be able to share parking. So that was what was well, what currently is the rule. And this article is proposing that we dissolve that sort of assumption that those businesses are the only ones that might have customers on, in hours that are opposite times from each other, and just say, if businesses are able to strike up these parking sharing agreements with each other, then we should like let them do that. And it will be evaluated by the planning board whether those uses are like kind of complementary to each other versus overlapping too much. So that's one of the things this article does.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
And Elizabeth might know this. How many businesses have taken advantage of the zoning the way it is now? Not zoning,
Of this
right,
exemption.
of
this
what
current-
exists currently around parking. In other words, are there many pairings for parking in Concord right now?
So I'm not, the only recent project is gonna be, the redevelopment of Paparazzi. That has joint parking agreement, 300-310 Baker Ave in the hotel and Vanguard, Harvard, well, it's not, what is it, Atrius? Is that what it's
Oh.
called now?
Mhm.
They have a joint parking agreement. Then there's others, but have more been like a long-standing legal non-conforming parking arrangement, like the businesses behind Deborah's. But where there's existing businesses that have a shared parking situation, a lot of them are also similar to the businesses, behind Deborah's, also have some, legal non-conforming parking relief as well. So it gets kind of murky with the older places, but also Millbrook Terry has some used some joint parking arrangement when Concord Market was built. So there are some.
Crosby's?
Well, Crosby's definitely has shared parking. I don't know if they took any, I don't know the exact calculation of whether they took, like up to the 50%. I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm going to say probably there's some element of joint parking at Crosby's, but
And
we don't have like a list. No.
would the determination be that the way that the rule is written currently has not achieved what we would have hoped it would achieve?
I don't think it has achieved a significant amount of joint parking as it relates to not building excess parking, and all of the sustainability measures that go with not building excess parking.
Like I
So
think,
what motivated this, I think, is
Right,
what you're
yeah.
trying to get at, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve?
so I think what this stems from is that the consultant that the planning board hired to just kind of look at our parking rules and regs and compare them to other towns and how other towns were handling similar challenges that we're encountering. And one of their pieces of advice was other towns are letting this joint parking be a more kind of like unstructured approach. I mean, this is fairly structured, but the other towns didn't have the stipulations of like, this business must trade with that business. It was more like, if businesses can reach an agreement amongst themselves, then they'll bring that to the planning board. It'll be subject to a study that like says how many cars are needing to be parked at any time during the day. And they're gonna have like this whole big chart of like how much parking is needed, and make sure that the sharing arrangement that's being proposed would suit, the parking demand in the area.
So
And-
like the,
So let me, I'll just clarify just a couple of things. So, besides having just these limited, these limited uses being able to share, you can have joint parking up to 50%. Don't know, don't know where 50% came from. It's not based on anything. So that was the other issue. It's, that 50% is not based on any factual data. So the proposed amendment that the planning board is putting forth, besides, broadening the types of uses that can utilize joint parking, but putting in a requirement that you have to do, have a, basically a transportation or parking engineer use industry, data and, factual information to do an hour by hour analysis of the parking required for all of those uses and come up with the minimum parking that's going to be needed at the highest use
peak time.
hour. And that
Mhm.
is what your joint parking, your minimum parking is, not some, you have a bank and a restaurant and just 50% can be joint parking. It's like, well, so that was another key component of this amendment, was actually basing your joint parking and what the minimum required parking is on factual data and information.
So when we were looking at that proposal, just to use like a real
Yeah.
example for the gas station,
Yeah.
you know, that's by,
The
Kenny.
ENS, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Was that, like, I don't remember this conversation. I remember they were wanting to have a restaurant in there and everyone was, oh, where are they gonna park? Was this like were they allowed to say use 50% of the, what is that street, where the, offices and,
Oh, Bradford Mill?
Bradford Mill,
Yeah.
like, were they?
Um,
that part of
no.
it? No, am I confusing what
So-
this is?
So sadly, the zoning bylaw is very confusing.
Okay,
So joint parking and what the planning board is proposing is solely dealing with the minimum required parking on, the highest hour use for all of those uses. And that minimum number is what would be required to be provided on site. So that's joint parking. Off-site parking is where, um, you know, uh, let's say like Cafe Nero, there's no parking on that property. They could for their employees, they could lease maybe like 6 spaces behind Fritz and Gigi's, because Fritz and Gigi's parking lot has excess parking for the area and the uses on their property. That's called off-site parking. Somebody can lease spaces from another site that's within 600 feet if that site has excess parking. The gas station, that request was total relief from parking, saying, we don't want to build and have no ability to build the number of spaces that the zoning bylaw requires. And we don't think we should have to build it because there's all of this public parking that's available, which, in that case wasn't true. But so that's the difference with relief from parking. It is actually requesting that the minimum required parking not be applicable for that project. So that's the difference between those 3 different terms in parking.
Mhm.
So Elizabeth, I have a question with the whole ENS gas station thing. Say they were amenable to
Yeah.
having all the parking that they required to build their building. Would they have had to have all that parking there in the ENS lot, or could they have said, we're gonna have the spots for the business? We're gonna lease some spots over by Bradford Mill and have the people who come to the commercial space use those spots, and then the residential parking will be located on our site such that our parking is split, but we're still providing all the spaces that we're required to.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand. Like,
Yeah.
how does this apply to like a real scenario like that?
Yeah,
So joint, what the planning board's proposing under this amendment, that's not applicable to that example question. So, if they wanted to lease off-site spaces, there's certain parameters that have to be met. Those spaces have to be within 600 feet of the building or the use. They have to enter into, a long-term lease. Usually it's, whatever the life of that, that use or building, whether it's 30 years or that was the example I gave today. So for like Novo, which has, because the residential property will be divided from 310 Baker Ave, there's going to be a new property line, but they have a joint parking and technically off-site parking, because it's going to be on a separate parcel. That lease agreement for that off-site parking is for as long as the Novo buildings are there and occupied. So for the gas station, Bradford Mill parking lot is going to be too far.
Okay.
But could they have like 13B Com Ave, that parking lot? Could they have leased spaces over there? Yes. But if 13B Com Ave moved forward and built the building, then the gas station would have to modify the project to reduce the number of required spaces. So it really is, a site by site and case by case basis when you're looking at a project, because it depends on, what the uses are, how many square feet of those different uses, what the minimum parking requirement is in table 4 in the zoning bylaw. And, all of that goes into a calculation when somebody's trying to build a project and figure out, how they're going to, accommodate their required parking. So this particular amendment for joint parking, just one, allows greater flexibility for different uses to use joint parking, and two, more importantly, requires an actual factual basis for determining what the minimum required parking is at any, the highest level at any 1 hour for all the uses on the site.
okay. So it's more custom to the situation, and the planning board reviews the parking study and reviews all the facts of the case before they say yay or nay on a proposal. Like there's nothing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because each, somebody who wants to propose using joint parking has to go through site plan approval and get approval from the planning board for that joint parking use.
Okay,
What are the downsides of this? I'm trying to understand if there is one.
I don't personally think there are any downsides. There are folks who are kind of conflating this with other parking, sort of, axes to grind that they have. And so you would perhaps hear them talk about those scenarios at town meeting in relation to this. But as Elizabeth and I were talking before the meeting, they aren't really like an apples to apples situation. It's more that they're piling on the discussion about parking to air their grievances, basically, is what I've witnessed.
Mhm.
I don't know, Elizabeth, if you wanna.
So there's, yeah, so, and this has been stated numerous times at planning board meetings. There's 2 types of parking. There's private parking on site that businesses provide and is required under the zoning bylaw. And then there's public parking policies. The planning board has no control over public parking policies. This is your on-street parking. This is your town lots. This is, enforcement of, 3-hour parking on street or, so I think that's where some of the frustration is, in, the public parking side of things. And, the example that's, been coming up is, Concord Academy. So Concord Academy, when they got, they've had a construction project every year, I think for the last 7 years. And when they didn't have one during that time, you had the addition at the Umbrella. And then 2 years later, you had the addition at the library. And so there has been, I'm going to say a higher level of use of public parking because of all of that construction activity. But so the library's done, the Umbrella's done. With the Centennial Arts Center, I think a 38 space parking lot that was not available. So there was further impact on, on-street parking and spill over into the neighborhood. So it's kind of hard to talk about how to address public parking issues when you have this moment in time issue that eventually is going to go away when construction's done. So that's just my take on the situation.
Yeah, it seems like people are concerned that by allowing private parking to be shared, somehow there won't be enough parking, and then parking will start spilling over into the public parking spaces, which will keep folks who want to have parking to do shopping or to do whatever it is in Concord or West Concord, that they won't be able to get a spot because they're concerned not enough parking is going to be set aside for the businesses, therefore the business is going to be parking in the public parking, and the public will be boxed out of parking that is there. So I would say that's kind of
Okay.
like the fear that seems to be coming up.
Mhm. But this is just trying to make more efficient use of the private space that businesses already have, that's
Right.
not being fully utilized.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, and so, yeah, the public we're not utilizing it now, so it's not like they could park there.
right,
So that seems illogical.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. And I do think like as a West Concord Advisory Committee, we need to be thinking about what makes our town center more thriving and economically vibrant. And it certainly isn't building a whole lot of parking spaces that aren't going to get occupied, and so that you don't have, the ability to congregate with each other. You don't have the green space. You don't have
Right.
the vitality of the businesses themselves. Like, is it going to die out because we've got a bunch of parking spaces, but nothing to come and park and do? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Well, especially as MCI is being developed, this would now apply to that whatever's there as well.
Well, I think
Yes.
they'll develop a separate zoning plan. I think, Elizabeth Clark, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it will be separate over there. Is that right?
So yes, eventually there will be new zoning for MCI Concord. Whether joint parking under this section is going to be excluded from that zoning or permitted as part of that zoning, I can't answer that. But as a planner, I don't see any reason why you would not develop zoning for MCI Concord that permitted joint parking and had it based on factual data for,
Yeah,
hour by hour for uses.
Exactly. So it seems like it's the right time to opening that up, given that we have this new development happening.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's 37.
that's 37. So would you all be willing to take a vote on this now, or do you want to cover both of them and then vote on
Are they
both?
related?
They are kind of related because 44 is also related to parking.
We do it separately?
You wanna do it
Just- yeah,
separately?
yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's take a vote now. Everyone who is in favor of voicing our public support for Article 37, I'm gonna just go around the room and, if you say, yes or no, that'd be great. So, let's see, Nicole,
Yes.
okay. Lindsay, you can vote anyway. I'm not sure. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And then we've got, let's see, Anna,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Awesome, okay. So 37, yes, and this. All right. Let us move on to 34 then, or sorry, 44, excuse me. Let's see, share again.
Just nobody wants me to write tonight.
Oh, you need another.
I give you my pen, but I have to use it.
Anna agreed to take notes, so it was fine. Thank you.
If you want it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
This looks like it might affect more than 66, a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, so I think I have to, should I go to this presentation? Because it's not really super well
This is the
explained.
one Mimi was talking about, right?
Hmm?
I think this is the one Mimi talked to us about. And
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Oh, yeah. that's
So,
better.
right, so yeah, Mimi came to our meeting to talk about this. So this is in commercial districts, of which West Concord has a commercial district, changing the use of a business, like let's say it gets a new tenant, like a particular location gets a new tenant. If that new tenant is doing a thing in the commercial district that is permitted within that business district, so let's say, having a bookstore is permitted and having a hair salon is permitted, it's like one of those switching to the other. You don't have to be required to provide additional parking when the new business comes in. And
You get grandfathered in. almost.
yeah, you get grandfathered in, yeah. So like if the new business, like say the hair
West Concord
salon would
Liquors.
normally have to provide 9 parking spots and the space they were taking had only needed to provide 6, they will not be required to provide 9. The hair salon won't be required to provide 9. They will just stick with the 6 that their previous business had. And I understand that the rationale behind this is that basically the new business, the protocol is the new business goes to the planning board and the ZBA to request that they get relief from the parking that they cannot come up with because all the parking spots around them are taken already because it's a business district. And the ZBA basically always approves those requests because they want the business to go into the space that's been vacated by the old business. And it's kind of like an administrative kind of burden for the ZBA to be always just like turnkey approving these. So it's kind of like, why even bother having the new business come in front of the ZBA when it's just kind of a performative
It could be automatic
action?
anyway.
Yeah. So that's my understanding of it. Let's see.
Initially included residential, but no longer, okay.
Right, yeah. So this is only for business parking. It does not encompass residential parking.
Less than 60% is typically used in the commercial districts. That's what people find hard to believe.
I know.
But again, it's human beings want to park as close as possible, no matter where they're going.
Okay, so I guess the only thing that's like, what if, I don't know, a clothing store were replaced by a restaurant?
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
that a
Is there
scenario?
some valve for problem solving if something doesn't work out?
Applicants must provide a parking study, interesting. Oh, now.
That-
This is the
yeah.
current situation.
So I can see, you know, if the other business had significantly potentially different
Right,
requirements,
vastly different.
that would be. Are we reading this right, Elizabeth?
So I can't speak to this entirely because this is an article that the EVC is putting forth. But as I, understand, so if you have the warrant article it's not just if there's a change in use from one permitted business use to another. The
Is on mute.
Oh, Elizabeth, you're on mute.
sorry. So I have this is an article being put forth by the EVC, so I haven't been involved in their meetings. So, but what I can say is this presentation is from the public hearing. From the public hearing, which was April 9th, to when the motions were submitted. The motion on this article is being amended to also, it's not just when there's a change of use from one permitted business use to another. The actual, and this is what I was typing as you were talking, because when Susan brought up the article on the town meeting webpage, the motion they have there is incorrect. The motion that was submitted is Mr. Lawson moves that town meeting take affirmative action on Article 44 is printed in the warrant with the following change. They're striking the section 4.2.3.5, which was an amendment that would allow if a business use was changing to a mixed use. So that is being struck, but also that new section would read, in commercial districts, a change in use from one permitted business use to another permitted business use that does not increase the square footage of the use or commercial space shall not be required to provide additional parking. So the yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's what you sent me.
Yeah. So, but
This
and-
issue of like a
and that's why,
salon.
so
Mhm.
the example, yeah, you might have a retail shop that changes from a retail shop to a restaurant, but let's say the Concord bookstore and the retail shop next to the bookstore, both those businesses leave. A restaurant couldn't come in and take up both of those spaces and become, a restaurant. So you couldn't add to the square footage of one business space and not be required and not have to provide additional parking.
But
Does that
what if
answer your
your
question?
Concord bookshop
Became a
shut down and
coffee shop, yeah.
became a restaurant?
Then under this article, they would not have to provide additional parking based on the premise that Concord Bookshop doesn't have any parking already. So
Right,
that's where,
would be
and
problematic.
to the previous comment, the Board of Appeals, an application where somebody comes in requesting relief from parking, they would have to come in and request relief. They would have to hire a transportation and parking engineer to go through, do a parking assessment of the public parking and the availability of public parking. That restaurant may say, like Cafe Nero, saying, we're going to lease 10 spaces from Fritz and Gigi's because they have this huge parking lot and and the business is really small, it's never gonna need, the 30-something parking spaces that are back there. So they would have to go through that special permit process to get relief from parking to go in. And that's what the EVC is highlighting, in that you're going to make them go through relief from parking, and what, they don't get relief, so that space stays vacant until somebody comes in. I think the example that was given was like the Best of Britain. That space stayed vacant for a while. There's no parking associated with that space. And so if a restaurant went in there, they would have had to go through and get relief from parking. And that's what Cafe Nero had to do.
Someone mentioned today at the League of Women Voters meeting that it would be very hard for other restaurants to come into Concord, given like the water and sewer situation, which I guess may be the case until the MCI water treatment plant comes online for our town. But that was interesting for me to hear that, like, even if a restaurant were to try to occupy the spot that like the bookstore was in or a hair salon was in, they would find it tough to get the other I guess necessities to open. And I don't know how factual that is, but
Parking would be the least of their problems.
yeah, right, they'd be
But then
facing.
we're kind of mixing different
Right,
issues there, aren't
Yeah.
we? I mean, we're trying to evaluate this on its own, right? Assuming that a restaurant, we have sufficient sewer systems to allow a restaurant to move in here. So why it says the planning board voted unanimously to defer its recommendation. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, at the time that the motions and recommendations were due for the briefing book, the planning board had not met. And so I can tell you the motion that the planning board put forth for Article 44 after they discussed it. Hang on. The planning board's recommendation, they are actually not voted not to make a recommendation to town meeting. So they can, there's affirmative action, recommend no action, or the planning board has voted to take no position. They feel that this article needs to be discussed at town meeting by the citizens, and the pros and cons for this article need to be discussed at town meeting, and town meeting needs to decide, whether it's, for, the position, the Economic Vitality Committee and, the economic vitality of the centers versus, the potential that, there could be unintended consequences with a bookstore being replaced by a restaurant and there being, impact on public parking. So the planning board is not taking a position on this article.
So we could too.
Yeah, we could decide to wait until town meeting and it would sort itself out. Maybe someone would make an amendment to this, or that often happens. Like if there's a big concern about the restaurant scenario, maybe that would be encapsulated in.
Hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing that just bothers me about
Very,
it. I just
very
don't-
different kinds of
Yeah.
things, yeah.
So I don't think I feel comfortable saying yes right now.
Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts to share about this? Okay, so should we, do you guys want to take a vote on this, or should we say, okay, you want to take a vote?
Vote to what?
Vote to defer our recommendation. Like vote to not take a position, maybe?
Yeah, or not to take a position at this point.
Vote to not take a position. Okay. All right,
So-
so,
Is silence?
So I'm
is
gonna-
silence of approval
I'm-
what I'm saying?
So I am gonna clarify, for zoning articles, legally, the planning board is the only board that is legally obligated to make a report to town meeting.
mm,
Yeah, so we don't.
So,
say
you know, if this committee kind of sounds like it's, you know, ended up in the same position that the planning board has ended up, you're not required to submit any type of, you know, position to the town moderator to read at town meeting. You can, but you're not required to.
okay. So if we think we're
we
kind of
don't even have to vote.
inconclusive on this, we don't have to do anything really.
Right.
We can just move
Correct.
on to this topic. You guys want.
Sounds good.
Okay, all right, let's move on to our next topic, which I believe is John, talking to us about the possibility of a pocket park at the 1440 Main Street, soon to be neighborhood, I guess, would you call it?
Yep. You see my screen?
Almost. There we go. Yeah.
John, would you mind giving an, if you know it, I mean, it sounds like you're close to this, an update as what is the current situation?
We
For-
lost in court.
What?
That we lost in court. So it's going forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just didn't know anything more than that,
Oh,
though. It's
okay.
like, John, can you fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I want to, and I'm actually not an expert, to be honest, on like the ins and outs of the legal processes and things, but
Timeline, like,
so
what's
what
happening?
what I did here was I linked to the documents on the town website where you can kind of read everything. But
Okay.
the short of it is, and what's relevant to this particular presentation is that the development is now in front of the planning board after a years-long several processes, and
So,
you know.
so I'll give an update if you don't mind, John.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who said it in the room. I think it was Barbara, but yes, there's two aspects to the project. There's the definitive subdivision plan. And then there was the earth removal, special permit from the Board of Appeals. The developer did appeal both, and without going into detail, the town was not successful through land court on upholding the two decisions, one by the planning board, one by the Board of Appeals. Both land court remanded those decisions back to the planning board and the Board of Appeals to issue amended decision, which both boards did. Planning board for definitive subdivision plan, and the Board of Appeals for the earth removal permit. So at this point in time, the developer is now able to move forward with the development. Currently, there are the definitive subdivision plans that in that planning board's decision, there were certain changes that had to, minor changes that had to be made to the approved definitive plans. Those have been made. They have provided the performance guarantee, which is a requirement under the subdivision control law that the developer provide to guarantee the construction of the road, utilities, and stormwater drainage. All of that information comes back to me, and then I endorse the plan. I think there's, I don't know how many sheets there are. There's a lot. Basically signing on behalf of the planning board that all of the conditions prior to endorsement have been met. Those plans get signed, then they go to the registry of deeds, they get recorded, and that is the actual step that is needed to lay out the new road right of way, lay out and create the additional, the new lots. And then the developer can move forward through the rest of the conditions in the definitive subdivision plan, decision, and the earth removal special permit, and move forward with construction of the project. So those plans are going to be endorsed Friday morning. And I imagine they will be recorded either Friday or sometime early next week.
And how many units is this subdivision?
A total of 18 lots.
Thank you.
And then,
Does that
John,
include the two
John,
that
if you
are-
want me to go into like the technical side of the reservation of lots, is that helpful?
Sure. Yep.
So under subdivision control law, a planning board has the ability to reserve lots in a subdivision for a public park. And that reservation is on those, on the lot. The town has 3 years from the date of endorsement of the definitive plan to purchase those lots at fair market value and turn them into a park. So there are 2 lots within that subdivision that have been reserved. There's lot A1, which fronts on Highland Street, and then further within the subdivision, there's another lot that was reserved that connects over to that existing town-owned piece of land that's behind Center Village that connects over to Conant Street.
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll be
Very
quiet
helpful.
now.
All right, thanks. So I had submitted a letter in 2020 and then again very recently. And I'll go into that a little bit. And then I was asked to sort of present a little bit of a summary of that here.
Hey, John, could you speak up a little bit more or go closer to your computer speaker? I'm gonna try to turn the owl up here, but we would love to hear you a bit more.
Yeah, 1 second.
It's the computer.
Yeah. 1 second.
It would be really close to Ride Out.
I think so. Yeah. Conant. Right, yeah. Way.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Great. All right, so I was asked to sort of summarize the letter. And the concept here is West Concord Pocket Park at the Center in Maine. Center in Maine is kind of like short for the development that's going in. Wait a second. Okay, so this is a little snapshot here of the development. This is a screenshot from the plans. You can see Main Street's here, and then Highland Street kind of kicks around here right now.
Are you on 2 screens? Because we're seeing a subdivision rules and regs section 6.2 slide. So you might just need to go to a different slide.
I think it
all.
might just be slow to load.
Oh.
Maybe can you see it?
Yes, I'm seeing it now. Yeah, definitely. We can see it.
You can see the Center and Main Street development slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, So this is all in here. This plan is all wooded area you might be familiar with. This is 62 here where my pointer is, and then Highland Street,
Yeah.
right? So it's gonna, the development's gonna replace the forested area. There's lots of background documentation at this link on the town website, even more than Elizabeth summarized. So you can go into all the detail there, including the letters that have been submitted over the years. And then Elizabeth talked through this, so I'm not going to read it all, but there is a section in the subdivision rules and regulations that allows for reservation of land for public purpose. And maybe I'll skip to this and go back. So in 2020, I submitted a letter in accordance with section 620, which was in support of reserving that land, some land for public purpose in the development. That was now 5 years ago, almost. And so, you know, the development plans have advanced over that time. And this month, actually, we submitted a letter further to that November 2020 letter, which was signed by 23 households with representation from different parts of the neighborhood around West Concord, Highland Street, Main Street, Chase Road, and Church Street. And the idea is to support the purchase of Lot A1 for public use, with the concept being that we would convert that to a pocket park. And so if you look, Lot A1 is sort of just at the 90-degree bend here on Highland Street, kind of zoomed in. Elizabeth mentioned another lot, and that's Lot 6, which is up here on the sort of opposite corner. And I haven't really focused on that here, maybe just for simplicity, but certainly feedback could be to sort of broaden the scope to include some discussion of that Lot 6. All right. So the concept here is that, you know, currently there's no public wooded or open space between Main Street and the railroad. In the letter, we say sort of like Ride Out Park is really like literally on the other side of the tracks. It's difficult to access from our neighborhood, and that would be the most significant public wooded space. Obviously, the development's going to remove significant wooded space. Certainly, that's been the subject of a lot of the public comment along the lines of the planning board meetings and zoning board meetings. And then, you know, with the reservation of that lot or some of the land for public use, there's an opportunity for the town to create a green space, partially wooded green space on that land. And it would be accessible to both new and existing residents. We call it sort of a joining space between the new development and the existing neighborhood. So you can kind of interpret that. And it will be a practical means for the residents in the new development, just based on the positioning of this. So if you look at the map, so it'll be a practical means for residents of the new development to access the town center and the train station on foot. Otherwise, they would be sort of coming down and like going along Main Street. Here they have, you know, a green space and then a sort of a less busy street that they could walk along more directly into town. And then these are by no means designs that I've come up with. These are just kind of concepts from the internet about what is a pocket park. So we think of this as like a partially wooded throughway and a green space. And these are just kind of, you know, images of that kind of idea.
John, how big is that lot A1?
Yeah, it's about a quarter acre, a little bit more than a quarter acre.
Okay.
And how would the houses get to it?
So
You know,
John,
I think,
John,
yeah.
if I can, so I don't know if you can zoom in on lot A1.
I'd be able to.
But so
Elizabeth, so for
yep.
just to mention, Ride Out is how many acres? Like just to,
Oh, I have no idea how big Ride Out
okay.
is.
I have no.
But so if you look at lot A1, I'm going to say that the top of the lot, there's lot 13, and then between that, next to that is lot 14. On lot 13, going from road B, that cul-de-sac, up to lot A1, there is a designated public access easement that was also incorporated into the plans by the planning board as part of their decision. So to John's point, the neighborhood, there's the sidewalks within this neighborhood will also be open to the public. So there could be a trail going from road B and then back out to Highland. That is also an opportunity.
And then what's in front of A1, as I guess you would be looking towards Main Street, are those also housing units there?
They're
Those
existing.
Those are two existing homes.
The two that they built
Okay.
before this thing went off the rails.
Okay, got it. Interesting, okay. This park would be behind their house, all right.
And see, it says existing unit, those two, Susan, back, those two existing ones, they're mapped out
On Highland?
there
Yeah.
to be raised, it says. On lot 15 and 14.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Wow. This is gonna be so different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think like qualitatively, subjectively, I think the community members view this as, it's a little disheartening to see so much forest and wooded space disappear, but perhaps this is like a silver lining, and maybe it's a way to sort of join the new development with the existing neighborhood in a way that's positive and kind of actually contributes value in the form of some public space and wooded space that didn't previously exist. I think that's kind of the spirit of this. And then just a bit to summarize and finish up. So the concept aligns well with our own village master plan, which calls for creation of new open spaces and public amenities in the village. And it also kind of more generally aligns with the town's aspirations for connectivity near the commuter rail and commercial centers to increase tree canopy and support environmental sustainability. So we think it's aligned. Next steps are to continue to socialize the concept. So we submitted the letter just recently to the Select Board, Planning Board, and the Natural Resources Commission. We're socializing the concept now with you guys, WCAC. And then we were also invited to do the same with the NRC's upcoming meeting. And it seems like the critical path is to support the submission for an application to the Community Preservation Act funds for purchasing the lot.
What's the purchase price?
Yep. And so I think probably Elizabeth can speak to this better, but the 620 section, I think it says that the land will be needs to be purchased at sort of fair market value within 3 years.
So the town would need to, the reservation of land and the decision to purchase starts with the select board. And, so the town would have to conduct an appraisal of the property to determine a purchase price and then move forward through that process. I also think as far as moving forward and I think you said socializing the concept, is that the word you used, John?
Yep.
Yeah, that it would be also good to get feedback from the Recreation Commission as well as the Public Works Commission, because the subdivision control law, the statute is fairly clear. It's a park or, it would need to, it would not be, like the Natural Resources Commission taking ownership of it and it not being, utilized in some public purpose. So, it would have to be, like open. It, and it specifically talks about parks so I will need to get clarification on as far as like the, ownership pattern, whether, the Natural Resources Commission, when they take ownership, it's under a certain provision under Mass General Law. So I'm just not familiar enough with it to say whether, the commission could hold the ownership of it, or whether the select board would have to hold ownership of it as municipal land, and if you're talking about Pocket Park, then it becomes, who maintains it, if it's natural resources, that's one conversation. If it's the rec department or public works, parks, highway and grounds, and, then that's another conversation that, also has to happen. But I'm just not familiar with that aspect of ownership yet.
Right.
And then
But-
who would pay for the actual building of a playground or what have you, which can be $1 million+ dollars. So that's what you're saying, you don't know.
Well, no, I don't. I have no idea how much building a playground would cost, but right now we don't even know how much fair market value is. So that's where the select board would have to agree to have an independent appraisal done.
Does it seem like this land could be acquired for fair market value and remain in its wild state for a particular period of time? Or are they basically just, I think they might be just clearing everything in this developed area, and then we'd be like trying to rebuild that into something appealing?
Yeah. So one of the decisions that land court made was this section of the subdivision rules and regs. They actually found that it goes beyond the statute under subdivision control law when it talks about if the board reserves land, a notation shall be made on the plan concerning the area being reserved and the requirements that currently it says no street, utility, buildings, or other improvements with the land within the boundaries. Subdivision control law only states that the requirements that no buildings, it does not say streets, utilities. I think the condition that was actually put in the original decision that was appealed talked about no tree removal. All of that was struck by land court.
Oh. Wow. I wonder what the rationale was. Anyway, it is what it is.
It just ties specifically to the statute under the state subdivision control law. That's all the state subdivision control law says. So land court's decision was this section, as it is written, goes beyond that legal jurisdictional limit set by subdivision control law.
So for applying for CPA, those applications are usually due every fall. Is that right? Is that kind of like the deadline you're working towards, John?
September, yeah.
I
September?
believe they're going to be due somewhere around September 12th this year.
Okay.
So, should we entertain the possibility of like writing a letter to support this? What would you all think that we should
To
do?
whom?
I don't
I think it'd be
know,
to
I'm
the
not-
select board.
What role do we have in this? I'm a little bit confused, to be honest.
I think we can support the idea of acquiring the property, and support the idea of it being funded with CPA funds.
Partially, they wouldn't, I don't think they give enough to cover the whole thing.
Do you think they would over like the span of 3 years though? Well, I guess it depends on what the fair market value is.
Right.
You could put it in like for multiple years.
And it would have to fall under one of 3 categories.
Oh, you know a lot about this, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
Um,
I do believe purchasing the property for a park is an eligible CPA.
Come under recreation, yeah.
Mhm.
Has to be housing, recreation. Can't think what the third one is right now.
Open space and historic preservation.
Yes, historic preservation, there we go.
So it
So, I
sounds like
mean-
we don't know the condition of the land will be. If it will be completely cleared or left alone. It's up to the whim of the developer.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I mean, it seems that way. It seems like they are trying to clear all that land to develop it. They're gonna be like removing lots of dirt, et cetera, to make it level. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's,
Clear cut.
yeah, laid bare of any current plants and stuff. But, I mean, it seems like a great use of that space to have a park there versus, I think it would just become another house or something if there wasn't a park there, because the developer would just take it back and develop it.
Well, it sounds like, John, do you need a decision from us tonight?
I think if there's any decision, I think the most helpful thing would be a decision for or against writing some kind of a letter in support of, taking the next step, perhaps, submitting a CPA application, funds application.
And then that
Who
would go
the-
to the select board
Or
or?
who would the letter go to?
Yeah, cause you're saying the select board decides whether to purchase the land. And then they would indicate, they would work with CPA or CPC to determine if they could fund it, the select board would do that.
Yeah, I guess
And we're
the,
just trying to influence the select board
Yeah.
decision to purchase it.
I think the select board would declare the intent for the town to purchase it, and then how it gets purchased is probably, either CPA 100% or a bunch of cobbled together resources. I don't even know if like grants would be available for something like this. I don't, John, did you get the sense that CPA could purchase the whole entire thing, like over the course of 3 years?
That I don't know. I'm learning this process as I go. I submitted a letter and there's a suggestion that CPA funds could be used to purchase the land. So I think that the current audience is the select board. And so I think if WCAC was supportive of the concept, that could be directed to the select board for now. I think that's the most productive thing.
Yeah, I think the most important thing right now is getting the appraisal done. And so that would be, through the select board. So, if this committee does, support the ideas and, the points that John presented to purchase the property for a pocket park, then it's, encouraging the select board to move forward with having an appraisal done. So you know what you're talking about. And then the funding side of things, it would be similar to, Assabet River Bluffs. I mean, that was CPA funding, that was some grant funding, that was private donations. That was a lot of things, cobbled together to make that project happen.
And how does the planning board get involved in this particular ask?
The planning board would not be involved in this particular ask. The planning board's role was only up to having the lots reserved as part of the definitive plan.
Okay.
But even asking the select board to pursue, an assessment is gonna
An
cost money.
appraisal,
Appraisal, sorry,
a couple
That-
$1,000s.
something, yeah.
And I really like this idea. I've lived in five different neighborhoods in Concord in the last 27 years. And if I imagine either living on Highland Street, which I've not done, but I've definitely had friends there and spent a lot of time there and spent a lot of time there. And it would, I like what John said about how it would connect the, you know, the older neighborhood of Highland Street with this newer development. So the families, you know, kids can go back and forth easily, and it just feels more integrated. If this weren't there, this new subdivision is gonna be its total own thing with one access point up the road. And I also think that the ability for the people in this neighborhood to walk down through Highland Street, and I just imagine that it would be a really community-oriented kind of thing. That, I mean, I have no idea if they're gonna fund it, but I don't think that's what we need to be concerned about, right? We're just whether it's a good idea as far as what we want to encourage in West Concord. So I really think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with you, Allison. It supports, as John was saying, the vision that we have for West Concord in terms of more green space, walkability, you know, building community. I like that sort of bridging idea between the old community and new. Yeah, I have no issues at all with it. I do wish they could leave the trees, Susan, but that's
Yeah.
not really what we're here to talk
I
about.
tried, yeah. Get some trees donated.
The town has a lot of trees they're trying to give away, I think, so maybe we could plant a bunch of them there.
Still, they haven't given them all away yet.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're clearing the lot doesn't preclude it from ultimately being a green space and a wooded space. But it would be more of a designed park, it just wouldn't have the original trees, but
So
Yeah.
should we take a vote on whether we would like to write a letter to the select board encouraging them to appraise the
Purchase,
value
yeah.
of lot A1?
I mean, I think that the WCAC could also just more generally express their support for the concept if that's useful or easier to manage at this point. Because we're not trying to make definitive decisions about funding or design or anything like that, but we could just, I'm sort of speaking with two different hats on. WCAC could just express their general support for the concept at this point to the select board. That could be helpful too. Yep.
Sounds
Yep.
reasonable.
Okay, and that support would be in the form probably of a letter, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think so.
John, could you do the first draft of that letter since? I mean, is that inappropriate? I know you're wearing two hats right here, but it seems like you know all of this and could write
Well-
that letter easily, whereas other people might not be able to.
I think so. I might have to like and maybe Elizabeth correct me, but I might have to like sort of recuse myself both from the vote and the letter. But what I could do is just point you to the letters that we've written and signed as a community, and also this presentation. And it might be easy to just sort of write a 2-paragraph, letter of support based on that.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that, looking at your letter and writing a letter to circulate somehow for everyone else to chime in on. That sounds easy.
Yeah, I think so.
You, Allison?
Okay, that'd be great. So I don't think we need to vote on that necessarily, because I feel like we are generally aligned on this.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, it is 50, so I feel like we can move on to other topics. I don't see any members of the public here. Oh, I actually see one person. So maybe we should move on to any comments from the public. And I do want to get back to the whole succession planning for just a couple minutes before we close out our meeting. But let's see, I see Bill Watt here, and I'm wondering, Bill, if you have any comments you want to share with the committee.
He's gone.
Okay, we scared him away. All right, so we can maybe get back to, do you all want to share any thoughts about who should lead the committee starting next month? I'm not trying to pressure anybody. Maybe you want to talk amongst yourselves at some point,
So
but
is
I
this
thought
your
I'd
last
open it up.
meeting then?
It is, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
That's so sad.
Well, yeah, I spent 6 years on this, so I'm ready to take a little bit of a
Right,
break,
right.
but I do still want to be involved, so I would certainly show up at meetings from time to time, and I want to still be a part of the dialogue, but someone else is gonna need to take the helm.
Why don't we start with who does not want to do it?
See, Nicole and I had a conversation.
We're out.
Okay, so you don't want to do it.
I'm committed enough right now with other committees, not just here, so.
Okay,
Yeah, and I'm about to commit, I think, to the Concord Education Fund
okay,
on the board of that.
okay,
So I was thinking I would be in line for this, so.
I
okay.
thought Anna has done a wonderful job in pursuing a
Oh.
lot of things in terms of researching around Morris Pond, among other things. And Allison, the same way, has been really good about keeping up with MCI Concord.
Yeah.
So they've already had some fingers out if
could
either
be
one of them would be
co-chairs.
interested or might be interested in doing it together.
That sounds like a great idea.
I'm not, no, I don't have
Yeah.
my life right now to take this on. It's a big job and it's one worthy of doing well, and that doesn't work for me right now.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way. So now what happens?
John, Greg, any thoughts from you all?
I only have a few more months left on my term, I think, right? And I already did it, so.
How long is the position of chair? Yeah, chair.
It's usually a year and it rotates amongst the membership. I think I just stayed for a second year of doing the chair job because we were in a lot of transition and it just kind of like made sense. But I think previous to that, it had always rotated amongst the members on an annual basis.
Ah. Okay. All right. Well, incredibly foolishly, I think I could do it for a year. Well, I mean, is there anyone else though?
No, I think we went through
tapped out, right?
Greg,
Susan,
You want to co?
did you receive my email on Friday?
Did I receive your email? I may have, but I may not have opened it, and I apologize for that. I've been just like kind of consumed with some other things, but is it
I
along
got
the
it.
lines of something that you and I have spoken about before?
Yeah. So I was presented to the select board on Monday night to become part of the planning board. So they voted me on the first round and they're voting me on the second round on Monday of next week. So I wrote you a resignation letter from WCAC as of the 31st of this month.
Oh,
So,
okay.
as part of what Wendy had told me to do. So
Yep. Okay.
got approached. I won't say who approached me, but I was approached to be and asked if I would join the planning board. So, and I accepted. I think a lot of what is going on right now and with what's going on with the planning board fits along the lines of what my background is with and what I think I could really benefit, like contribute a lot to that. So
Yeah.
we moved forward with it, and the select board made their first decision on Monday night. So and they said, they all voted yes, so next round, next week, so.
Promising, that's great.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, well, so that is good to know. Thank you for closing the loop on that, and sorry that I have been remiss in reading my email. But, so it seems like, let's see, we're still probably, if we had 8 members before, we're gonna be down me and down Greg, but then we've gained Lindsay, so 7, so I think we're at 7, which means we can take on 2 associate members still.
I've
So-
talked to Jen, who owns Joy Street, and she might be
That's great.
interested.
Okay,
And
all
she
right.
also lives in West Concord, so I thought it'd be interesting to have a business person
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
also lives in West Concord.
yeah, okay.
And Susan, a volunteer card, I'll forward it to you, but a volunteer card was also submitted for planning board. But it is somebody that hasn't served on a board or committee before.
Mhm.
And to jump into town politics with a 5-year term on the planning board is so, but this person may be great for West Concord Advisory Committee. So I
Okay.
will, I know the volunteer card has been forwarded to both Wendy and the chair of the planning board, but I will forward it to you.
Okay,
Um,
that sounds great.
and I will forward it to Anna.
And Anna, I will,
So
I can.
Anna, what I can tell you is that both Heather and I are, like always available. Heather is very good at reminding, if an agenda, needs to be submitted to her. We do all, you just submit agendas and minutes to Heather and I. They get posted, they get uploaded. If there's something on the web page you want added, or that all it is a quick email to Heather and I. So I promise you it's not, we help as best we can.
And delegate.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
I think I'd like to, I'm being a little protective of Anna, because that could have been me. And if it's supposed to rotate every year, I don't think, I know I wasn't told that coming on. And if I had been told that, I would have thought harder about coming on, but it sounds like we have a bunch of people on this committee who aren't interested. And Anna wants to do it for a year. So I think, like, I'm just foreseeing a year from now when we open it up, and if people don't want to be chair, like what do we do? And I just want to raise that as a problem, because that's awkward. We're all volunteering our time and doing our best, but it seems like this should be something that's talked about. I thought that Barbara or Nicole were gonna do it. I don't know why I thought that, but so it was a surprise to me to have them say that they had talked about it, no, and proposed Anna and me as coach. So it just.
We didn't propose,
We didn't propose.
no, we were joking, but we ran into each other at an MCI thing.
I agree with you though, Allison. I also was not aware that it was a requirement for each person to take the chair
So
position.
it's not that, it's just that in past years, it has rotated, the chairpersonship rotated every year to a different person, so
Okay.
like, the same crew of people were on the committee, and like, Joe took the chairmanship one year, Bob took it another year, Susie took it the next year, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it
So
just-
you don't have to feel obligated to take it, but
And a
It's-
year hence, circumstances may be different among members in general, who
Yeah.
then feel as though, all right, I got rid of those other 3 committees I'm on. Now I could take this on for a year.
yeah. And we could also take on a couple additional members too, like we have 2 open
Right.
spots now, and who knows what those people will feel like doing, like maybe the person who wanted to join the planning board but may come on our committee would think like, okay, it's gonna be a great experience leading the WCAC in a year for them to then step onto the planning board after that, like, who really knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anna should not feel as though she's now stuck doing this for the remainder of her term. That we are all aware that somebody has to be in charge.
Yeah, I think, and also some more context. I think when I was chair, I made a point of saying like, turning the position over is healthy for the group. So that
Yeah.
maybe coming where
I
some of
agree.
Susan's thoughts are coming from, but I think it's a really good point that there should be more of a conversation throughout the year about it, so people can start to, think, plan, or if nobody can do it, let's find some people to recruit and make a backup plan.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
absolutely.
What happens if nobody is able to do it? Because I am a little worried about time, but what, Elizabeth, is there a process?
I don't think there's a formal like written process. I would have to check with the town clerk, but I do think there have been instances where, and I don't know which committee, but like the chair rotated every meeting or every other meeting, or,
Right.
a chair was, somebody was chair for 3 months, and then, I mean, it was a conversation, and then it's like, okay, then somebody else, does it for 3 months, and, but there's no formal written policy of what happens when, nobody's able to be chair. But I'll check with the town clerk about that. Oh,
You
you're
don't have
muted,
to,
Ann.
I don't need to give you another job. No, it's okay. I said yes.
I
But
think
So
you
we-
do great job.
Barbara's point though, like in there have been instances where 6 months into, a chair has something, happen in their, their real life. And then, that's why for like the planning board, you have the chair, you have vice chair, and you have clerk. Sometimes the chair isn't there. So for that meeting, the vice chair and the Board of Appeals has the same. The vice chair, chairs that meeting and does everything. And, one time for the planning board, the vice chair couldn't do something, and the clerk chaired the meeting. So,
right. Okay.
Thank you for volunteering, Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
And I'll be in touch to do knowledge transfer and file transfer, and I will get all the minutes caught up so that you take over the committee with like a fresh slate and not some of the things that I owe from before.
Okay, and the meeting notes still go to Barbara, right? They don't go directly to Heather. They go to Heather after Barbara. Okay.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
think I'm caught up.
Yeah, I'll be feeding you some more though, I think. Yeah.
so generally, if the committee moves forward, nominate if Barbara continues to agree to be clerk, then you can, nominate a chair and a clerk to begin at your next meeting.
Should we do that now?
Yeah,
You
now.
can, if you're all done, that's usually the last piece of
Okay.
business. It would be, somebody would, move to appoint Anna as chair and Barbara as clerk, somebody seconds, and then the committee votes.
So moved.
I second. All right, so let's see, Allison.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's see, since John already did, Greg,
Yes.
Nicole,
Gratefully, yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Linda.
Yes. Yes, yes.
And Anna.
Yes.
All right, I think this is great, and I think it's, everyone's gonna do awesome, and I will certainly set you up for success with everything that I provide to you. We could have my whole entire Google Drive, and that will hopefully give you everything you need.
All right,
Um,
thank you.
So seeing that we have no other business, I move that we adjourn for tonight.